something to bring to us that's good, that's not really cool, it's good shape. But when you look at the fact that even though it's little, it can still spoil the vineyards. The fact that it's small doesn't mean it's not going to pose a problem, right? Because it's those little issues that spoil the vineyards. It's those issues of where we haven't been healed from our trauma from our childhood, right? It's those things where we have not gotten the deliverance that we need. And so it festers in small ways. It may seem small, just like you have an interaction with an individual, and it's just a very simple, innocent interaction, but then it gets blown up because you haven't allowed yourself to heal from what you heal from, right? And so those are the little foxes that come in and even that would damage the vineyards. And so it's important to understand that, a lot of times we look at the big things. We think that, oh, this is something major, so this is going to impact the building of Kingdom Church or the building of the church. But us not talking to each other is a small thing that's going to fester, right? And it's going to prevent the building of Christ's church. Gossiping is something. You're right. It's very destructive. Now, it can just be among two people out of a congregation of thousands. But if it starts with just two, right, it can go to 4 to 6 to 8, and that little fox has become that mature fox that's now supporting vineyards. And so, one thing about, you look at little fox, like, let's say a baby fox is only maybe like 15 inches tall. So imagine something that's only 15 inches tall, 3 inches, that can spoil a whole vineyard. So a vineyard is in blossom, right? And it's growing abundantly. But they still have the ability to get into the dirt and damage the roots, and so then the growth stops. And so that's what we're going to look at today, and delve a little bit more into what are those little foxes that happen in congregations, that happen in churches, that prevent the growth. So again, the vineyard's in blossom. We know the text tells us for our vineyards are in blossom. So there's growth that's being seen, but yet the little foxes are coming in and taking away that growth. Yeah, Martina. Yeah. Yeah. Right. And so those are they're not doing it intentionally. They don't know any better. Right. But what about the adults who are the little foxes who know better, right? And they're still the ones who are doing the gossiping. They're still the ones who are creating the division. They're still the ones who are preventing the church from growing. So a couple of things, I'll get you in a second. So a couple of other things with that is the little foxes dig holes and passages that loosen the soil around the vines, preventing a stable root system. So again, think about as a church is being developed, as it's being formed, and how those little foxes, the gossiping, the not getting along, can come in and just literally can literally take away the root and take away the stability of the system. And this is something that is maybe 15 inches tall. So again, we sometimes focus on the big things that we think are the bigger issues, but we have people in the congregation or people in leadership who create the vision. Then how is the church going to grow? Like, how is it going to be a healthy church if its stability is compromised, right? So just like us as individuals, like our core is our stability, right? So our core is what keeps us stable. Like when we're falling, we use our core. The stronger our core is, the less likely we are to hurt ourselves when we fall, right? And so what if our core and our body is not stable? When we get pushed ever so gently, we're going to fall down because we don't have a good support system. So just like with the church and these little foxes, if it's eroding the support system and the stability of the church, how is that going to be a healthy church? Like, how can we're not healthy humans, right? In a sense, if our core is not keeps our balance. That's what keeps us being mobile. And so think about it from the church perspective. These little foxes are creating division, and they're taking away the roots that are holding the church stable. Yeah. Okay.
And I was just thinking how we sometimes encourage that.
Yep.
We encourage it by, part of it.
Right.
We hear these conversations and everything, but we don't remove ourselves from it quick enough.
Right.
And then before you know it, that's why I don't like to get into a lot of little side conversations before the church talk, because it can pull you away from what you're there.
Exactly.
And you are not aware of it, but it does.
Right.
So you have to extract yourself from that.
Right.
And no, it's not coming down.
Yeah,
But it's true. Because you can be talking about something casually, and before you know it, you done got into a subject that you ain't even supposed to be in.
right,
And you wonder how it happened.
right,
So
right.
you stay there.
And then your name is put into the conversation. You might not even have said anything during the conversation,
When
but
you were
because you
there.
were present, now your name is going along with that same. What you say, Marquita? Yeah. And so like Ma Rawlings was saying, that's a great point, because if we even allow ourselves to be a part of the conversation that's tearing down other people, then even if we're not saying anything, we're still contributing to that erosion of that stability of the system. And then too, um, you know, you are in a place spiritually where you're not coming to hear what other people have to say. You're coming to hear what God has to say to you
That's
in
all.
that
That's
moment.
all I'm coming for.
And that's what people are not always doing, right? Some people are coming because they just want to see or hear what's going on, or they're not spiritually sound or spiritually healthy enough to know, like, this is not what I'm here for. And so when those people get into those conversations, because it is gossipy, it may in that moment be like, oh, okay, I want to hear, I want to talk about this. Then it takes your mind off of where you should be focused, which is the
It's
word.
very dangerous.
It is very dangerous. And so when you have those little foxes who don't have the spiritual maturity yet, who don't have the spiritual healthiness, and are engaging in these conversations, then that's just going to be one thing that it's going to be a domino effect. And the conversation typically is not going to stop there, because if there's somebody else who will continue the conversation, or there's always going to be a listening ear, then someone's always going to keep talking, right? And so again, now you have a church where there's division because someone has said something and it's gone from place to place to place. And again, the vineyards, again, let's go back to the vineyards are in blossom. So there's growth taking place, there's development taking place, and then these little foxes that we create come in and erode that system. So any more comments or any questions, any thoughts, anyone wants to bring up? Yeah. Say that again. Okay. Okay. And so for that, what would you tell somebody if they didn't know the difference between the two? Because and I say that because what happens if someone doesn't even realize what they're doing? Some people do, right? Some people are intentionally doing that, but what if someone is right? They're just so caught up in what they think is the latest fact to know, but they're not even aware of what they're doing.
if it's too many questionable moments, you're right, you probably should be there. Maybe, okay, this doesn't sound right. We also, so it's not, I think sometimes as believers, we get too deep with it because you already know right from wrong. So with actually knowing that, like, okay, this doesn't feel right, sometimes just going to that feeling and be like, okay, well, let me walk away from that. Versus just staying in the situation and allowing it to bigger because, like I said, you don't always have to pay, but it does not necessarily mean the person who is there isn't going to say anything.
And one thing too, so vineyards also don't necessarily blossom overnight, right? Like it takes time to cultivate the grapes that are grown at a vineyard. And so think about that. The little foxes are eroding what is taking sometimes years to build, right? And what that looks like. And so how that comes in, and again, it just erodes the system that's there. And also one thing is that it's not like a gigantic sweep and then they're going to the next one. It's bit by bit by bit. And so let me have this conversation today. Let me plant the seed today of discord. Let me come back next week to see if this landed anywhere, and if I can continue to sow more seeds of discord. And let me keep coming back, and let me keep coming back. So that's why that's one of the reasons why it's so dangerous, because it's not a full-on attack right then. You may not see the full damage at that point, but over time, if you allow the little foxes to continue, you will see the damage, because again, it's them gnawing at the vines, it's eating at the vines, and again, grapes in the vineyard are they're very tender, right? And so they can be easily destructive, just like someone who's very new in Christ, right? We can't we shouldn't want to play, especially with people who are new to Christ, because they're still tender in their spirituality. They're still tender in their level of maturity. And so if we start gnawing at that and sowing seeds of discord and gossiping and all that, exactly. And we start to erode who they are, who they're even trying to be. So again, we're eating at their spiritual core, because we are allowing the little foxes to come in, right? Any comments, any questions about that? Yeah.
Because a lot of times when we hear that, we don't see the positive, but it also is a negative.
Yeah.
Because it's what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you allowing yourself to be in? It's being yourself. It's not just actually eating. It's your ear gates, like what you're listening to, all of that stuff is being said.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're that messaging, it is planting.
Right.
So once it starts to get ordered, like you were saying, that it does take time. And so sometimes, and I love how you said that it could be 1 week, and then maybe they'll come back the next week or week after just to see if it actually started to grow, right? And sometimes it's not even the same person. It could be into another person, and just to see if that person would take its hold of it and nurture it, so it can grow. So I love how you said that. You really think about that, because in a garden, it does take time.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen like that.
Right. And then too, if you look at little foxes, it's not just the damage that's done, but over time they're killing the growth and they're killing the vine. So now it's become damage and now it's death, right? And so if you look at now what started off as a little fox is now a church killer, because we haven't stopped it and we haven't said no, this is not going to happen in this church, or pulling people to the side and be like, hey, this is not how we're doing things, and or if we're angry with someone, going to that person, because that sows discord as well. If we come in every Sunday, especially if we're serving with someone that we have disagreements with, and we have done nothing to go to that person and talk to them about it, then that's going to fester everything that we do. And so now you're taking what your responsibility of serving the kingdom to help save souls, and you're focusing it on your disdain or your dislike for somebody you're supposed to be serving with. And so how is a church supposed to grow if we're focusing on ourselves in that way and who we may be upset with, or who we have not settled a disagreement with, and as opposed to trying to build up the kingdom. And so that's what we want to kind of get into even a little bit more on tonight is, yeah,
and I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we who call ourselves so-called been in the faith a longer period of time, and then a new person comes in, we don't give them enough grace. I really don't. I think we do not give them enough grace.
Yeah.
I think when we've been in the faith a long period of time, we living right and all like that, some, not all, but some don't give that grace to them to be able to grow wherever they are, allowing them to grow. But you better be sure that you're strong enough to do that, to point out things and all of that, because you can damage a person so quickly that way by saying the wrong thing out your mouth.
And you know, one thing we don't know all the time what people are coming in the door with.
No.
So we don't know what their triggers may be.
That's right.
So something that may roll off of our backs may not roll off theirs, but it could trigger something they didn't before. Yeah.
Sorry, triple duty here. One of the things that I thought about was how we don't recognize the after effect of moments like that. I immediately thought about how if y'all have ever like thrown a pebble or a rock into water, and that ripple effect, it starts real small, but then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And those small, what we think are just individual or like one-on-ones, it's like it has the potential to spread. Like whoever that person that we offended is connected to, like that's a community of people now we can't reach. You know what I mean? Or if Elder and I had an issue, that could affect the environment that we set for Sunday. So we have to be very mindful of not just the immediate effects of those distractions, those little foxes, but even the greater reaching implications as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's such a great point. Because it happens, especially when in today's society where
It hurt.
okay, yeah. So with that, we don't know how to handle individuals, right? Because again, we're so focused on ourselves, we don't realize what people are hurting. And so what they don't need is the little foxes that are unfortunately in church, in church today, that are bringing more damage and sometimes even wrong. Or even those who have never been in a structured church setting, right? And it doesn't mean they come from wrong, they just might not know how to handle something.
How to navigate in it, you know?
And all a lot of it to me just a learning process. But to your point, we have not extended the grace that we were given. We didn't always know.
Yeah.
What the protocol was, or how to always treat somebody or be loving to somebody. But nobody else got treated us grace, right? So we sometimes forget the grace that was given to us. We should try to extend to other people.
Right.
Any questions or comments? So I'm trying hard not to call it not calling, but John or Lisa, do you have anything that you want to add to the conversation? All right, so what I want you all to do is to get in groups like 2 or 3, and what I want you to do is look at about two church killings, right? Of behaviors that I'm going to say that you have seen exhibit. I'm not going to say that you have exhibited, all right? Because we're going to claim there are no little foxes in this room. So I'm going to say that you have seen exhibited, and also look at some scripture, not some scripture that references that. So again, think of what we just talked about, what little foxes represent, what church killers represent, right? And find scripture to say, like, hey, this is how this gets resolved. Or if you see someone who's exhibiting this behavior, or if you catch yourself exhibiting this behavior, then maybe I need to refer back to this text because this will convict me, and I will not, I will not continue to act that way. So we'll take about 20 or 30 minutes or so to go through that.
like you're so friendly. Yeah, trash. I'm not so friendly. But
But that's
and I like to meet one.
but the thing is that also being able to receive that. Oh, being able, but being able to receive sometimes haven't had like think something or even something, but haven't allowed themselves to learn how to don't know how to stop forming certain things because you're not open. Old part. We all owe that. Exactly. We've been here with the branding. Oh,
Yeah.
I know too, but not postpone. Yeah.
That's what I'm, that's the thing I was,
Really?
because I was wondering who you were.
Our moment's over.
No, it's okay, you know, yeah. So I was thinking when I first came, so was like, they are holy and righteous and scripture, but I was
So why would I run out of the house when I but then sometimes it might not like
no, 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 it was gonna help, but at the same, in wrestling is this, in wrestling is what you're saying, you have to learn, you have to learn live.
So next
that's why you're not trying.
No, 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 let's hear about that.
Let nobody in.
we try.
Right,
But we got me.
you just lost that.
We just did one we locked in.
Once you learn, once I told you,
Yeah.
not only did I have to learn, I had to learn that before me, there was, and I'm not trying to cover it, but I just had to learn and learn why they come together and why they didn't come together because of what they have, you know, so, and they had, like, Okay, Kelsey? All right, y'all have your couple of things that you want to, couple of church calendars that you want to, mention? All right, who wants to start off? Okay.
Okay, so the first one of the church buildings that we had was gossip. Okay. I hear we are you'll take over from this one.
Because I go first. So, we play gospel. So, well, the scripture that we have for that, the church is
Yes, I was gonna ask you to read.
Thank you so much. So, Sheree, would read the 1916.
Okay, so Leviticus 19:16 says, "You shall not go around as a gossip among your people, and you are not to act as a light." Proverbs 11:13. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered.
Psalms 34:13.
Then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies.
And Ephesians 4:29.
Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Now that's selling.
Yeah, I was going to even ask you all. So when you picked out those scriptures, was there anything that resonated with you in that? Oh, I probably need to stop doing that.
Well, Ephesians 4 did because I think the big part for me was that he helped for building up. He helped for building others up according to their needs. And it may benefit that who's listening. And for me, when we're going around saying things that we do not know the truth about, we need to listen to what the problem is and not just jump to the conclusion and assume.
Right. So also take that even with, how does that become a little fox and how does that become destructive? We talked about. So imagine the church is blossoming, right? The church is growing. The church itself is doing what it needs to do. What you just said, how is that going to, what is the impact that what you just said has on the growth of the church?
Because a lot of it, I think, lies. It's not true. Speaking on things that we don't know anything about. And that could kill, the perception of self could kill what somebody new might be coming in, even an old partner that might be that's here, and they hear something, and that one thing could be like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with what I just heard. And then when they feel that way, there's no clarity, and you're not asking questions, and you want to the source. So somebody could say, Pastor said, well, we doing this, that, and the other thing, and that's not true. And we just like, okay, that's what we're going. I'm gonna run with that. And then we're not asking questions to get clarity. We're not asking you. We're not asking anybody from operations. We're just not asking any questions, and we're just running. And we leave, and they leave. And that's what happens a lot. The gossip is, I think, is one of the top killers, because when we gossip and we hear things that we think is true or not true, we automatically turn the face and run out the door and not get the clarity from it.
And I want to say something to that. So why do we not get clarity?
Because we're
as believers. Because we're supposed to believe it. The Bible teaches us that we're supposed to go out brothers and that's all. So if I hear something, and let's say for instance, I heard about Joyce Rawlings.
What you heard about me?
And it's outside of her character. It's outside of who she is. She don't speak negative about nobody, right? But they like, she is gospel with everybody in this church.
That's a lot.
Why not address that? Or why do we run with stuff that is negative?
One reason I think is because,
And I'm not saying we do this at this church. We have these wonderful guests. I don't even think that we have.
we are no running.
We are very healthy church.
No, we
We
grown.
are very healthy church.
We grown.
That's why we gonna chill these little boxes.
I think one is because we're afraid of clarity and afraid of truth. And the other part to it is that we're afraid of confrontation. Because at the same time, now we're speaking about Joyce. Now everybody loves Joyce. And some people don't want the backlash, since we're using mama, of what might happen when we speak about Joyce. You know what I'm saying?
Can I have something? Why it's interesting. Every time we talk about having a conversation with somebody, it's kind of a confrontation.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you don't know how to address it.
And so where does that come from? Is it coming from the fear of I don't know how to address a situation calmly?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to assume if I'm coming to so that means you're coming to the conversation confrontational.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to have a
But you
conversation.
gotta bring it down.
Right. So it's interesting, and like Pastor said, it's not just here, but it's interesting when a conversation or a discussion is categorized as a confrontation. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be.
But you know what it goes back to, not to cut you off, and this is from my own personal experience. It goes from not having the proper education or training and not having the proper pour into. A lot of it, people, I would have not been confrontational because I've never been able to speak to people because of my past and how I was treated. So if you haven't dealt with past pours into your future, and your future will make you look at everything that's coming to you or coming for you. Everything that's coming to you or for you, you think you have to be like this all the time. And if you haven't had the proper pouring into the training or been educated on how to deal with certain situations, whether it be church, whether it be life, whether it be family, you are always going to be, that conversation is always going to be confrontational. It's never going to be clarity. And then that is going to keep
pouring the fuel on the fire to make people to keep running because they don't want to confront it or take accountability and responsibility for the part they played in and the part that other person played in. So it really has to deal with you as an individual and the things that you have not dealt with. Now, if somebody comes to me, if this, I mean, and this is why I'm glad we have this conversation, even at work now, being in this management position, I know how to approach things and not be confrontational. I know when something is brought to me, if it's something that I think is going to pique my confrontation, I know I'll deal with this at another time because I have to be more professional and more approachable about it. Especially if I know my staff. Like I know who I can go to and say, yo, what's up? Otherwise I have to be like, hold up. Let me give them a minute. Let me give me a minute because I know what this is going to bring forth. So we have to deal with us individually in order to have those conversations that they cannot be confrontational.
So this may end up being more of a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer more general public, but why do you think we don't do that? Because you mentioned specific ways to get away from that, right? To get the healing that you need, to get the training that you need. Why do you think people want to continue to refer to it as a confrontation as opposed to learning how to make it a conversation?
Because I'll say for me,
We want to be light. We want to be light.
it's what they used to want, but then it's also a fear. It's a fear of what the outcome may
What
be.
they
Because
think about
if I come into it confrontational, then I'm expecting confrontation. If I come into it humbling and the other person is not, then we have another issue. So it's the fear of what will this outcome be? No matter which way I come in, because it could be bad and it could be good. But you also at the end have to know that person too. If you know this person, then you can come at it a different way. But if you don't know it, you have to take time for yourself and say, one, how do I approach it? Or ask somebody that might know them and say, hey, you don't have to give the whole situation about what happened, but say, I need to speak to this person. What tips do you have for me that might help me? But it might be, for me, it used to be a fear because I know who I used to be. I know how, because I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. But if we sitting up here, like you and I talking right now, and we have this conversation, then I know at the end of this conversation that could have become confrontational, I know that we're gonna hug it out. And the next time we see each other, all that's wiped away. Hopefully that we both have come to that agreement. Because we could say it's wiped away, but when I see you again, you be like, there she go. And I'm coming to you and say, hey, Elder, how you doing? You're like, I'm like, dang. So it's the fear of what the outcome of that conversation might end up.
Arcady, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had enough.
Can you raise your hand for me? Come on.
I have to write out a lot of my responses out because it's easier for me to write out my thoughts and I'm not just witty or like quick with my comeback. That's the thing, like real hard sometimes. But when it comes down to confrontation, for me, I had to learn that confrontation is healthy. It's healthy to approach situations and with it about the delivery. So it comes the right delivery and the right type of part. And I love how you have mentioned you know the person, because if you know the person's heart, you can understand that their intentions were not actually what you thought it was. And also being honest with yourself, are you willing to change? Because if it's something that seems like, okay, well, this is always going to be an issue, are you going to look at it like there's two sides to everything? It's not just one sided. So nobody is 100% wrong. And it's not that somebody's wrong, it's what's missing. And a lot of times it's just a communication barrier of, okay, well, maybe this person said this, but that's not actually what they thought that it was coming out. So it's about perception. And then also knowing what your triggers are and having your own sense of awareness so that when it approaches again, you know how to actually move forward instead of repeating the same thing.
Sometimes it's just my opinion. Sometimes we are so concerned and worried about what the person gonna think about me if I say this to them? The after effect. Let me hold back. And then it builds up and builds up. And then when we do let it out, it's bombastic, you know. I think we have to start not being so concerned about, I know who I am, okay? I know who I am. I know what I've done. And I know me. And I'm not here to hurt you. And if I have that in my heart, then I can approach you on just about anything. But if I fear that, oh Lord, what is she gonna think of me now? Wow, I mean, she gonna think I'm the worst person in the world. If you had those thoughts before you even open your mouth, then you're already psyching yourself up for defense. Instead of letting yourself be open, you have to be able to let yourself be open. I let myself be open a lot for those people up that one right there. She tells me some things and I feel it and it bothers me. But I tell her, look now, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And then it's done. Huh? Because you put me in it. I want to say you started. But it's some of that goes on. If you allow yourself to be open, that you gotta have tough skin sometimes, you know, because sometimes people come to you hard. They don't realize it, but you feel it, and you cannot respond when you're angry. Because if you respond when you're angry, you're gonna blow this thing out the water. You really will.
Even as you were talking, I was thinking, and I'm including myself in this. What if in our actions and our responses, we're talking about the church, right? So, what if in our actions and our responses, our first thought is, how's this going to impact me? Because this is all about church killing. The bigger picture, right? It's not about who we are as individuals. So we allow ourselves and our emotions to get in the way. So we're so focused on how we're doing something that we don't realize how it could impact the church, right? And so even if it's hard for us to get past something, even if it's hard for us to have a necessary conversation or discussion, what if we said, how is the ministry that I'm on impacted if I don't have this conversation? Right.
That's it. It's outside himself.
It's stability uprooted, like the foxes knowing on the roots of the vineyards, right? And tearing that. How am I contributing to that by not allowing myself to by not putting myself in a position where I can have necessary conversation about it? Or if I hear something, why am I not defending what I'm hearing? Because because no response can be a response too, right? And so if I hear someone talking about someone that I know what they're talking about has nothing to do with their character, and I just let it continue on, am I just as guilty as if I was in a conversation? Yeah.
I say, what are you talking about this?
I should have picked up the conversation. Then I said, like, okay, we're not talking about this. We don't spread this to you. So just think about that. What if we were to reframe our mind when we're hesitant to do something that may go against, what we're comfortable with? If we look at it, is this a church killer? Am I preventing Kingdom Church from growing by not doing this or by doing this? Right. So thank you, table one or group one for that. John and Felicia.
All right, come on.
We had a couple, but keeping in context with the church killers.
Sorry, please.
I'm sorry, yes. So we had a couple, but staying in context with church killers, we came up with worldly Christians. Speaking of worldly Christians, are those Christians who have not detached themselves or not separating themselves from the things of the world, still smoking, joking, and drinking and everything else with everybody else, but you're not separating yourself and proving yourself that you are a chosen one and part of God's chosen people. So the scripture that came up with was Revelations 3:15 through 16. And it states, I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were neither one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. So what I gathered from that is basically God wants you to pick either one or the other, or basically choosing for yourself by being a worldly Christian, and you're not up underneath him, and he's not going to tolerate the balancing your acts on the fence. He wants you to be one or the other. So we're helping in killing the church if you are doing those, participating in those kind of actions, because you're not drawing people into Christ, because they say, hey, you're one of me, you're doing the same thing, so why do I need to come to the church? If you're smoking, I'm smoking, we both live in this life, so I'm okay with doing what I'm doing, because you are as well.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing that, did you get the scripture, Marquis? Can you repeat that?
15, 16.
All right. So the reason makes it very important. I want to make sure that you all heard, everyone heard what she was saying, because that happens so frequently. Because some of us have one foot in, one foot out.
Yeah.
Right. And we're serving, and we have one foot in, one foot out, and we don't understand what that means to the impact and how that damages our credibility as being a witness for Kingdom Church. So again, if we stop to think, me posting this picture, me going out to this event, me going out to this club, this organization, or whatever, and somebody sees me and I'm doing something that is not representative of Kingdom Church, is the thought of, you should start to have the thought of, how will this impact ministry, right? How will this impact, if someone who I was partying with last night, smoking weed with whatever last night, and I'm like, hey, or they see me doing an event where I'm evangelizing or I'm speaking, what credibility do I have at that point? How can I convince them to live a life satisfactory to Christ if I'm doing the same thing that they're doing? And again, we stay so focused in what we want to do that we don't think of what the impact is to the overall kingdom. So that was a very good and very relevant, especially as we had people who were coming in who were struggling with trying to get out of the world. And they want to, they don't know how to, and they get confused when they see us up here on Sunday morning, but we're also out there with them in the world. So thank you all for saying. Do you have another one? Okay. All right. Any comments on that particular text and what she was saying about being basically saying yes, no, being in a being caught in the middle?
I like thank you for referencing that one. But if you're not showing us anger, then they're going to be that they're going to look at it like, why should I change? I didn't really hear everything.
Yeah, I know there was a little bit of noise on here. So, Felicia, can you, I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said?
Tell them, Mom.
I'm just basically referencing just the being a worldly Christian, and when you're teetering the fence, when you're still out smoking and drinking.
Stand up.
I was talking about worldly Christians, and when you're still in the world, but then you're, practicing also in church as well. But when they see you out there smoking, joking, even, drinking and stuff like that with them, then they see no need to come to church because they understand, like, you're doing the same thing I'm out here doing, And there was another scripture, Romans 14:16, where it says, therefore, do not let what you know is good be spoken of evil. Which basically, like, don't let the good things that you do be looked at as if it can be evil. Like she was saying, if I'm going to the club and I'm out here drinking, doing everything else with them, I can't say, oh, I'm out here prophesying too, and I'm trying to bring them to church. But they see that you're out there in the club with them and you're doing all these things. So what makes them want to come and, let me raise my hand to God on Sunday when Saturday we just was out here doing all this crazy stuff. So,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
Can I add?
Yeah.
But then we brought that up I used to, I used to go to everything. Anything was going on, a event or whatever, I was there. And they be dancing, doing everything, not everything, but dancing, but not supposed to stuff, but whatever. But I'm 75 years old. And she used to say, "Oh, why you do that?" I said, "Because you can save souls in the club too." You know?
There you go. That's her excuse for bowling. Everybody put that right.
But as I've grown, those activities come less, and I go to other things.
That's right.
You know, but I used to go out. Yeah, I still dance, but you know, but it is something about in my spirit that won't let me completely turn my back because I do feel souls can be saved anyway. But I put it down.
Sheree said, can we go to the club and not smoke and drink?
What is it?
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, because she said, "Oh, this said it was not her."
Okay, let me ask you.
My question,
I have well, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do nothing.
This is always what I think about. So.
But I'm old, I can get away
So
with
I'm
it.
gonna use Sheree. You gotta say Sheree. I'm gonna use this.
Okay.
Write it down. Write it down.
All right, let's go.
She's being trained as one of my new actors. She represents me now. So if she in a club, turn it up, how does that make me look? It's bigger than her now. So when we talk about representation, we ain't even got to the God part, right? Because that's another piece of that too. We got to go, but that's even bigger than that. But I'm gonna look at it from my perspective because you guys would use her as an example. Even when you step in leadership, when you serve and stuff like that, people know that. They see the pictures.
You can use me as an example. I was out in the club. I had one foot in and one foot out. I got in a fight at the club and somebody called pastor.
I'm just saying, I got I'm in my glasses on.
I'm in leadership. Like, I'm one foot in, one foot out, and I still want to go to the club. And then I'm out here fighting.
Yeah.
And then the next day, somebody calls her, not even 24 hours. Literally, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
I'm just trying to tell y'all.
But I don't go to the club no more. So,
And that's okay.
But sometimes you need those moments.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because, and it's not an excuse to be like, let me go until I have my moment. Let me do that because I know the same. I know you gotta say that. But I say that because sometimes people gotta pull your card and say, I thought you go to church.
Right.
To help you realize that you're not being a good witness. You always posting about your church. But you already doing the same stuff. She just said it. You already doing the same stuff I'm doing. So why do I need to come to your church? Why here's a big one. Why do I need your God? Because you serving him and living like him. This goes back to the hot and cold. She just read the scripture. I'm gonna go to the Old Testament. Choose ye this day who you want to serve. It said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. You have to make a choice.
And I'm a pray.
And as you grow, and this is the thing, as you grow, everything doesn't fall off overnight. Right? It's a process. But there's some stuff you are aware of what you do. And when you have an awareness of what you do, you are held accountable. All right. I'm done. I want to teach them tonight.
I didn't stop going to the club immediately. It took time. But now, like, I'm a big go-go fan. I love go-go music, loud music. I can play it.
Let it go
I don't go no more. Like, it took time though. Over the last 5 years, like literally over the last 5 years, I haven't been to nobody's club unless it was like somebody in my family's birthday, happy birthday, and then I'm gone.
Right.
But other than that, it took time. But the last 5, it's been a wrap.
And it all takes time. Let's stay there for a second. It all takes time. So you might get saved this year and you might go from smoking 5 cigarettes to 1. That's process. And one of the things I can understand about, and I know I'm not just like a pastor. We can't be the type of Christians that we expect people to change overnight. The same way God gave us grace, we got to give people grace so they can grow. But at the same time, as believers, we can also hold each other accountable and do it in love. You know what I mean? Yeah. Girl, you got some stuff in there.
That's where we need to check ourselves every now and then. Because we can get ourselves in a situation where we supposed, like I said before, we sometimes unknowingly get in them situations until the attention is put on it. And then we look at it, whoa, wait a minute here, and we think about it.
I think as we decrease and allow God to increase into our lives,
Right.
you start to still want to interject and put yourself in a situation. The Holy Spirit is going to convict you,
Yeah.
and you're not going to want to do those things.
And-
You're going to
and
figure
I
out how to.
I was convicted, I was embarrassed, I was like, oh.
And I have to say this, when we go to those places or whatever, you know, sometimes, and I've seen it really happen, this is no joke. The guys or girls, whatever, they'll pull their stuff aside. They smoking or doing or drinking around you. Oh, no, you can't do that right now. You know, that's the problem right there. You know, sometimes it can cause them to think about what they're doing. I'm not saying I'm right, but sometimes it causes but it causes them to think about what they are doing. What it does.
We're gonna go to Erica's group.
It does.
Let's do paid over. Proverbs 10.
What was yours?
Proverbs.
And, oh, hater.
Oh, Lord.
Hate the spirit of strife, but love covers all sin.
Love.
And that's one thing,
Boy, that word.
even going back to what Pastor just said, we sometimes forget where we came from.
Yeah.
We think just because we made it, that we didn't go through anything to get to get through the journey, or get to the destination that we currently are. And so that whole grace piece that we talked about earlier, we totally forget about that, because we forgot that we were once there with them. Just because our journey may have started before theirs did, it didn't mean we didn't have to go on a journey for ourselves. And so we are so quick to hate on others because they haven't moved as quickly as we think they should. When not even realizing we probably didn't even move as quickly as somebody else thought we should. But they still continue to work with us. Oh, I'm sorry.
But then the haters that were in the church or were members of the church, then they leave and then they hate on the church. And they go spread, stuff about that. So like they are haters because whatever happened that made you leave this church, you should have just left them alone.
Never resolved.
Because nobody hurt you in this church. Nobody did you wrong. Not this church. Not this big God. Not this elder. Nobody hurt anybody in this church. So to go and say that you got hurt or talk to people or people in the church are haters and stuff like that. For what? Nobody did you wrong.
They got her by the truth. Erica, hold on. Finish with them. You have another one?
We had evil down.
Evil.
1 Corinthians 5. Evil. For what have I to do with judging outside? It is not those inside the church are to judge. God judges those outside, purge the evil person from among you.
Okay, so what is the impact that has on, how does that become a church together?
Just straight out people. I don't know, that's a hard one. You gotta work
When
with
you have that person who comes to church, they feel dabble in crystals, or they still believe in sage or the zodiac sign, like they still participating in ungodly or things that's not of God, and then you're in church, so it's like it's tolerant.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's hard to hear, because y'all keep talking, and other people talking, so if y'all can just please just be quiet for a second. I can't hear you.
Don't put me in that. That's why.
All right, so, I'm sorry, Erica. You have another one?
We had covered gospels, right?
Yeah.
The weak person always got an attitude, grumbler.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You have a text with that?
Let's see, Philippines 2:14. Do all things without grumbling or disputing.
Okay, and explain to us how that impacts the church. How does that become a church?
Because if you have a person that's here that's just complaining about everything, like can't do nothing, we can't do nothing right. It's just, sometimes that rubs off on people. When people start trying to put things under a microscope, so now they paying extra attention to how we praying, how we collecting offering, how we, you have this one person just walking around complaining about stuff all the time. So it kind of causes division.
And why is she preaching today? And why is she not preaching today?
Come on.
Wow. So,
And you're right, I mean, with the grumbling piece, and if you're already in a negative headspace, anyway, it's so easy to gravitate toward that. And like you said, now if you start looking at stuff you can never even look at before. Like how they were singing the song never bothered you.
Right.
And so somebody said they sound off key there.
Right.
You don't even know what all
I know.
You don't even know where it is that the note is not hit right,
Yeah.
and all that. But all of a sudden, you're now critiquing everything because you've allowed that to get into your mindset, and now there's nothing right with this church. And then that's going to fester into you telling somebody else, well, yeah, they didn't sing that song right. Or as Lisa said, why did she preach today? Why not her? Or why did she get to lead prayer today? I'm like, no, because she can actually pray or has a prayer life. It has nothing to do with feeding into the grumbling, but it's amazing how people will gravitate more toward negativity than they will positivity. And it's so sad to see, and especially when it circulates around the church and it impacts ministry, especially when it's from leaders, right? If leaders do that, if leaders start having these conversations, well, why are we setting up like this? Or why are we doing this? And then partners are coming in, guests are coming in, and you're angry for what? Because you allow somebody's negativity to feed into where you already were with a negative headspace, as opposed to saying, no, we do this because this is what we do here at Kingdom Church, and this is why we're doing this, or even for yourself, like praying against any distractions, or praying for the clarity, or praying that, you won't get caught up in anything negative that will feed into becoming little foxes that will uproot the stability of the church.
Especially for leaders, like, you know, if you're a leader at the church, you shouldn't be.
Right.
You know, you're supposed to
Right.
be leading by example. That's why you were put in a position that you are put in.
Right. It's like the church in general, right? We shouldn't be grumbling like the world grumbles.
Right.
If anyone is exuding positivity, it should be the church, right? Because we're supposed to be the safe haven from the world. But you don't go to a safe haven to be in the same environment you are that you're trying to get out of, right? But when, even going back to what Felicia said, if people come in and see the world at Kingdom Church or at church period, like what is that doing for them, right? Now it's creating confusion. It's like, well, either I can come in here and do whatever I want to do, you know, without any conviction, which is a whole nother problem. Or they're so confused. It's like, well, the world, like you telling me this, but yet I see the world occurring in your church. And so that creates, you know, creates more discord, right? And so again, the little fox is becoming the church killer, as we talked about. Like it's the stability of the system that now, bit by bit, again, we talked about the fox doesn't take big gaping bites out of the vineyard, right? It's gnawing bit by bit by bit. So this stuff doesn't happen, and it doesn't always happen at one time. It's like Sunday by Sunday by Sunday by Sunday by Sunday, and then by the end of the year, there's a ministry that's totally divided because little foxes got in and eroded the system, right? And became a church killer. And so one thing too that's very interesting is foxes are considered omnivores. Do y'all know what that means? All right, okay. So what group eats meat? What group eats plants?
Oh, they.
So what do you think omnivores are? Right. And so think about it. We're talking about an animal that doesn't just focus on one category of food. It eats a little bit of everything. So it doesn't matter. It can be hospitality that it gnaws on. It can be transportation that it gnaws on. It can be ministry servant 101. It can be Bible study. It can be media. It can be the ministers in training. It could be the elders in training. It could be the finance team. It could be administration. It could be operations. It could be every little thing, because foxes will eat on anything. And so we even have to think about that, and that it can gravitate to any piece of ministry, in any branch of any ministry, of any team that we have at Kingdom Church. It's not just going to go for pastor. It's not just going to go for elder and training. It's going to go for us as leaders. It's going to go for us as ministry servants. It's going to go for us as partners if we allow it to happen, right? And so we have to be the ones to keep it from happening. So again, we talked about like vineyards. It takes a while for a vineyard to come into full blossom. Again, it doesn't happen overnight, right? And so we cultivated this church. We cultivated this system that is growing, that is blossoming. Again, the word says that the vineyard is in blossom, right? So that means it's growing and it's fruitful. But then with that, we still allow these little foxes to come in, the gossip, the evil, the judging, the being 1 foot in the world, 1 foot out. And next thing you know, what was blossoming is now dead. Because it starts with damage and then it ends with death. So if we even start to look at how are our actions and how are our responses to things, are we contributing to the death of Kingdom Church by what we're doing or what we're not doing? If we don't take that one step to say, how are my actions impacting the ministry at Kingdom Church? When I walk by and I let the conversation continue, that I know is going to that is going to not do anything productive or beneficial to Kingdom Church, am I part of that little fox group because I ignored it or I chose to ignore it? Or am I going to do my part and say, no, this is not going to happen here? Like you might have gotten a hold of it, but you can't gnaw onto it, right? So before gnawing starts to happen, the fox has to actually put in his mouth, right?
Yeah.
And so before it starts to gnaw on the vineyard, that's when we see the fox even gravitating to the vineyard. That's when we need to step in to make sure nothing happens. Yeah,
That is why I was just thinking the role of action. This is why they're so important. Because I don't know all about different roles and responsibilities. But all of this division and stuff happens down here below. Down here below, among the congregation. And sometimes it never gets up to the pastor. Or it gets to her later. And then some of that damage
right.
has been sprinkled along the way. And we, I have a problem with people, and I'll say this just to me. When people run to the pastor with every single thing. I mean, the little teeny thing that it just takes you going over there. Hey, I need to have a conversation. Can we solve the situation that I got going on in my head so I can feel better? Sometimes it don't even have to go way up there. You know, because the pastor got so much to do.
You know, something you said that just struck me. You said conversation in my head.
Yeah.
Not the conversation that took place,
Yeah.
but the conversation that you fabricated in your mind.
In my head, and I want to get it clear.
Right. I hear what you're saying, but you hear what I'm saying in that sometimes we fabricate these conversations and we create little foxes, and there's no fox in it. Right. You're overthinking it. You're like, okay, well, you've already have a full blown out conversation with responses, and no one has even said anything. Right. So we sometimes do that, right?
Yeah. Really, but I never went to the person that
Yeah.
I'm having it with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like to think the majority of the time they may not even know there was an issue. And so they're like, right. And so they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was a problem. Thank you for coming to tell me. If they're mature enough to receive it,
Right.
and they're in a place where they want to help build up the kingdom as well, like, all right, we need to squash this. We can't continue this on. But yeah, I just wanted to point out when you said conversation in your head, because that's where a lot of conversations start, and that's where discourse starts in our heads. And then we allow some things to fester without even getting anybody else involved. Again, we have full blown out conversations with responses. Like we got a script in our mind. Yeah. Mhm.
Accountability is the key, but it's not anybody calling correction is love. So if you have a problem with that, sometimes it's not necessarily the person that's actually giving it to you. It's just searching the word.
Is that again the last part?
Searching the word.
Okay.
What is it that I need to change? Look at the person in the mirror, and it's not everyone else always there.
So how easy is that to do, or how difficult is that to do?
I would say how easy is that to do? It's not always easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes you actually look at your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking for my kids. Like, so when you have to look at yourself and when you say that prayer is going to actually end up exposing everything. And you have to be in a place where you want to change yourself. So if you don't want to change, the exposure can actually end up breaking you down because you're just like, okay, but I didn't necessarily know all of that, right? But at the same time, it doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to be difficult. It's only difficult when you're fighting. If you actually surrender to it and then you're like, okay, well, that was me. You know what I mean? Like, that did happen. Let me go ahead and address it. So now it won't be an issue. And then I can actually have a conversation. I can actually, do the things that wasn't easier before. So would I say that it's easy? if you want to change, yeah.
Okay.
But things they don't always, just because, so I wouldn't say the word easy. And the reason why I would say that is because it does take time. So it's not like, sometimes when we think about easy, it's just going to be an immediate change or an immediate fix. But it's still a process. So being aware, like, being aware of, okay, well, I'm looking at me. Now I see that this is there, that's there, all of these words are right there. And I've exposed myself to me. But am I going to have those words being erased by confronting it? Change only happens from exposure, and you have to confront the exposure to be able to actually have the change.
Sometimes we hide behind that word love. When we go to people without things we want to tell them about. We say, oh, it's all in love, but I got to take it. And you hurt the heck out of that person. But you say, it's in love. You got to check yourself of what you really feel when you have a conversation or confront that person. Because I haven't seen it happen. Oh, sis, I got to tell you something in love, but it hurt the heck out of a person. And we just got to be careful about that word love that we throw out there, what it really means when we say, I'm coming to you in love. And then you cut the heart out. Got to be careful.
But sometimes she cuts.
Yeah, I don't
But you cut, but you have to also know how to bend it. So you gotta know how to bend it, and I say that all the time. You can come in love. There's a way that you can come in love, but you have to know how to bend it at the same. You don't leave them there, like you don't leave them out to sleep, because then they're not.
Yes.
All right. As we start to kind of wrap up, any more questions or comments? All right, so I pray as every Bible study, especially in the Healthy Church series, that that we take what we've learned here. And Marquita, you said it, change. You have to want to change. It's funny how easy it is to say I want to change, but how difficult it is to want to change. Because it sounds good to say I want to do better. And we typically believe in our minds we want to do better. But the work that it takes to do better, a lot of times it's easier to stay in what we know, which is not doing better, than to move to a place of actually doing better, right? And so that's a good, a big part of what this Healthy Church series is about. And also, let's remember to think about, are we contributing to the little fox issue? Are we the ones who are making it difficult for people who need Jesus to come in and see Jesus? Or are people seeing the division? Are people seeing the gossip? Are they seeing what they don't need to see? Or are they seeing what they see in the world when all they need is Jesus? And so I pray that, as always, that there was something that was said or done that, that you got out of this Bible study that will help make you a more productive Christian, right? Someone who, because we all have something to take from this. Just because I'm facilitating doesn't mean some of this wasn't for me, because I can always do better. I can always improve, right? And I always want to make sure that I'm not part of what may be occurring in terms of division at Kingdom Church, because at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with me, right? I may be used in certain roles, but it's not about me. It's about other people. And the more that we remember that it's not about us, and what are we doing to contribute to not being the little fox? And how do we keep the vineyards intact so that they continue to blossom and they don't get damaged and they don't die? All right. All right. And so, of course, I'm gonna call you out, but I'm so grateful that my friend and brother and former coworker, John, So thank you again for coming out.
Going out next time.
Yeah. All right. So in terms of announcements, let's see. We'll be back here Friday as we're rehearsing. Last rehearsal before Sunday, and then also we'll have an opportunity to set up. Dwayne's got his group of individuals who will help move stuff from storage. So we'll be setting up Friday. So if you can make it, please come out. We need as many hands as possible. This will help for Sunday morning, so we can all sleep in a little bit later, and we don't have to get here as early. And so 6:30 is as early as we can get in here. Like I said, there'll be practices going on, but we can also help set up the sanctuary as well. And of course, Sunday is our Christmas service. So make sure you invite somebody. Wear green, red, something casual, but something festive, or your ugly sweater. I know, Sheree, you're like the queen of ugly sweaters. You've even won awards in the past, so. But yeah, I think that's Pastor. Am I missing anything in terms of announcement? Yeah. Yes. All right, so let's close. Let's stand and close out in prayer.
Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. The elbows already.
I need to say something before I pray, because I've been dealing with something. It's only been like a gut punch, but it's a process. I've been struggling. So that's why I don't know if it's good for me to pray, but I probably need to.
Go ahead, honey.
So let's go to the Lord. Father, come to you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Thank you for this fellowship. Thank you for the jewels that were dropped tonight. Thank you for the folks who attend and the ones who couldn't attend. The ones that got down, we just know that we're trying to get better. We're trying to become healthier and be better. Just ask you to come better. Just keep covering everybody in the circle. As the same child, for those who have this prayer, just let me pray.
Thank you.
Tell them who you are.
Whew.
Come, so that's
Oh,
so grateful that you're part of my life. Yes. Well, that's where I'm supposed to be, but I'm where I'm supposed to be. Yes. And I thank you, God. Just thank you for everything.
Amen. Love you.
Hey y'all, we're wrapping up Bible study tonight. Thank y'all so much for chiming in, our online family. We want to thank our amazing elder Shanika for teaching tonight. We appreciate you. I know she don't really like these moments, but she's gonna get on me after. And we definitely want to just make sure that our pastor gets a moment to say hi to the online family.
hey, online family. Glad y'all hanging out. Love y'all.
So make sure that y'all come join us on Sunday. We're having our Christmas celebration, 11:15 a.m. Meet us here or meet us back online. 800 Comanche Drive, Oxon Hill, Maryland, 20745 if you want to be here in person. But again, we will also be back on our live stream. So we thank you for joining us. It's the last Bible study of the year. So we thank you so much for hanging out with us. We apologize again for the technical difficulties. Definitely looking forward to even greater in 2025. We got all the kinks worked out. We'll have much greater time moving forward. But we love you guys. Thank y'all so much for chiming in. Make sure you watch the replay if you missed anything. Subscribe, like, share. We look forward to seeing y'all on Sunday. Take care.